Welcome to the HSU board meeting, and it's approximately 10:05, July the 5th. We do have a quorum. We are in session. We have one item on our agenda today, and that is to approve receiving the $6 million advance from the state that has been approved by all the state officials. So the only thing we have is that. So I need a motion.
Johnny,
Yes.
this is Brown. Could I say something before we have that motion, please?
Sure.
Okay. Just over a year ago, the tenured faculty of Henderson passed a vote of no confidence in the university's administration. They warned us specifically about financial concerns. Following that vote, responding to our decision to ignore it, a petition of 500 signatures was sent to Governor Hutchinson. He ignored that. In recent days, I've heard from 1,000 different people, I guess, in person and on social media, asking why we ignored that vote of confidence. I asked that question myself. The people are questioning our competence as a board, and so do I. I would like to thank those people that have done it. I'm sorry we didn't listen to them. The ultimate responsibility of the health and survival of this university is in our hands. And I want to thank the people.
I agree with that.
Let me finish. I'm nearly through. I hope we do a better job of listening. Anybody that wants to talk about Henderson and their concerns, whether we agree with them or not, we need to listen to them, and we're not. I have thought about voting against taking the $6 million. I'll just tell you that for the truth. I know we need the money, but I know nothing about what our plans are to do with it. I'd like to propose that we have a face-to-face trustee meeting Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday of next week. I think time is of the essence, and I think we need to have a plan how we're going to use it.
Brown, we were going to do all those at the mid-year session on July 19th to cover everything.
I think that's waiting too long. I'm through, though. Go ahead.
Well, it's just, I don't have a problem with what you're saying, but we do have some plans on July 19th to cover a lot of things, and these are topics that will be covered in detail. And I think to your satisfaction at that point in time, and all the board members' satisfaction, and the alumni satisfaction. We're going to do some things, and I don't disagree with what you said. But today I really want us to. Yes.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Arnold here. I applaud your efforts the past couple of weeks. However, I and possibly others on the board have not seen any financial documents relating to this financial crisis. I'm requesting copies to review. Our planned meeting on July 19th is usually an informal strategy meeting. I do not see us having time to cover both issues. Therefore, I think a meeting of this board should occur as soon as possible, either Wednesday or Thursday of next week, to discuss what has happened since our last board meeting. We were told we had a budget deficit and we were told we had a balanced budget, and all of a sudden then we were told we had a small surplus. Then we understand we have a $3.5 million deficit and $10 million in accounts receivables and unpaid bills. So I think it's imperative that we meet to discuss this situation and save our July the 19th meeting for strategy and whatever else we need to cover at that meeting. I don't think we can cover both on that date, Mr. Chairman.
That's fine with me. It's up to whatever the board wants to do. That's fine.
Hey,
if you want to have a meeting
Johnny,
next week.
Johnny,
I don't worry. Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that, but if we don't have the financials to look at, that year end, et cetera, I don't.
It's hard. Exactly.
I don't see any reason to me. If we have the information, great. But if
they're working, Ross, you got a good point. They're working on closing the books now, and it does take a while to close on June, and it'll take them a while to pull those together. And I was hoping that we'd have more information on July 19th. Now I understand, that session could last all day long. I don't, whatever time it takes. So, normally it doesn't last about noon, but with what we've got coming up, I think we'll probably have a full day, and everybody needs to be prepared for that. But you're exactly right. You won't have the numbers because they hadn't closed the books yet.
Well, I mean, if they do, that's one thing. But if they don't, then I think we need to wait.
I agree 100%.
This is Bruce. I've informed the chairman I'm not going to be there on the 19th due to out-of-state commitment. And, you know, I'm not so sure if they can have some at least preliminary numbers before our next Wednesday or Thursday, whether they're going to have them on the 19th. That might be a question for the president. But I do agree that the retreat, because it sort of started in my tenure back a few years ago, that is really around strategy and positioning the university over the next, 3 to 5 years. And I would like to participate. Obviously, no one knew this was coming up. So, I'd be willing to try to rearrange stuff for next week, toward the end of the week, if that gives the president a little bit more time. But anyway, so that's sort of where I am. Okay,
well, let's ask the president. Can we have something to look at next Thursday or Friday?
It would be preliminary.
I'm visiting with our controllers in the room. She said at the very best, it'd be very preliminary, but I'm not hearing a lot of confidence that we'd be able to really present something that's very meaningful and useful for you all at that time.
But would you be able to do it a week later?
It would be a little more doable, yeah.
Yeah, I'm hearing it would be much more doable to have something about a week later, in keeping with the normal time frame of closing of the books. So have something that would be probably more reliable at that point.
So you're looking at maybe what day are you talking about?
Well, the 19th.
The 19th is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Well, and me speaking from being an accountant, I mean, I agree we should have the meeting, but without the numbers, I don't think we can add anything to it till we find out exactly the numbers. Without that, I think it's not a good waste. It wastes our time if we don't have the right numbers to look at to be able to answer
Mr.
Brown's or anybody's. Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Obviously, you have some numbers because I know you've been on the firing line with this. You have some numbers, and I'd like to see what you have and just
Eddie,
see where we are right now. Yeah.
Eddie, what I've got is what's in the newspaper. That's all I've got. Anything that's in the newspaper is all I've got.
Wow.
Well, again, this is Bruce, and and I understand, and maybe there's maybe Glenn, is the question, or Mr. President, the question for you, but is there an immediate cash flow need right now that we need to vote on this? I mean, asking us to do this without at least looking at some documents it gives me pause.
Yeah. There is an immediate need, which is why the request for the advance was made. And what we can do is, if you guys decide you want to get together next week, we'll pull together everything that we have and make it available for you at that time. But for right now, in terms of just meeting some cash flow needs, yes, sir, there is a need.
Hey, Glenn, this is Ross. Is this a one-time draw, or is it what I would call a revolving line of credit?
It'll be a one-time draw, and any amounts that we don't utilize, we would return. Then obviously, the full amount would have to be paid within the year.
Well, I suppose if there's no interest, it really doesn't matter if you draw it all or not.
That's correct.
Okay.
And and the state has approved the $6 million. Everybody signed off on it. They're willing to. They understand the need, and they really went to work and speeded this process up so we could have the cash to cover the shortfall here. And they understand they won't have to be paid back till June of 2020 with no interest.
Mr. Chairman, this is Brown. Can I say one more thing? I said I wasn't going to do that, but I missed the last board meeting, and I'm sorry for that. I had surgery, but we passed the budget. Did we have incorrect information then?
I'll let the president speak to that.
Okay.
I believe so. When we passed the budget, I became aware of some things after the budget was passed, and that's what we've been working to identify. As we've identified that we've had some concerns surrounding cash flows as it relates specifically to collecting on student accounts.
Okay.
I mean, hey, Johnny, this is Ron.
Yes.
You know, I'm going to just assume that all of the issue that's at hand, if we had current accounts receivable all collectible, we wouldn't be having a problem right now.
That would be that's a very fair statement. Now, we do have some outstanding accounts payable, which this cash flow shortfall is causing those to be delayed. The $6 million helps cover that, gives us time to collect the receivables and go to work in collecting those good, what I call the good receivable, which is probably $4.5 million according to the president. Okay.
Yeah, but I'm just saying.
Combination, yes.
But
we have a short.
Go ahead. No, go ahead and finish.
No, we've got some outstanding accounts payable that need to be paid. They're past due, okay? And they've talked to those folks, and they understand that they deal with a lot of institutions got the same problem, but we want to go ahead and get this advanced and get those bills paid and get the thing lined out and collect these receivables so we're moving forward and getting our cash flow position changed.
Mr. Chairman, if I could add, go ahead. No, go ahead, Ross.
Well, I mean, if in the normal course of business, you know, if our accounts receivable were collectible, then, you know, in the normal course of business, which is 45 to 60 days, and then in a normal business, there wouldn't be a shortfall, probably. But I mean, so the real issue here to me is not everything else that's involved. It's basically this $10 million receivable that's out there that, you know, which I would like to see is I've talked to Glenn about, you know, some aging, well, not some aging, a complete aging of them, you know, what the mean and median balance is, and a few other things that I think to be important. I mean, to me, if we're going to meet next week, the whole thing revolves around this, this receivable, which greatly is probably uncollectible. And so if you all can have some numbers on that and some breakdowns on that, I'm okay to meet for, next week. But if you don't have anything with that, of course, I would hope you have something by now, if you,
Ross, in my meeting with Dr. Jones and Lisa Franklin, I asked for the age accounts receivable, which they could not provide for me then, and I still don't have it. Okay.
Well,
that's what's being worked on there too.
Mr. Chair, I think that's an important document to have, and I agree with Ross. We're not talking about the full financial picture. There's a lot of moving targets, but
that's right.
And my question for the president, because obviously we want the university to pay its bills, but delaying it till next Thursday, does that, and then getting it approved, hopefully after we've had this accounting, does that put you in a predicament between now and next Thursday?
Bruce, can I say that I'll vote on it now if we can meet next week?
Well, I was hoping that we would vote on this today because the state is releasing the funds to Henderson next week.
Well, it's zero interest. Why? I don't know why you wouldn't. If you were paying 6%.
That's exactly right. I agree.
We're gonna have to draw something.
Yes, and I was on the phone with the DFA guy, and governor and everybody else, and they all have said, "Fine, we'll do this advance interest free. It doesn't have to be paid back till June of 2020, and that gives us time to use this money appropriately and give every board member everything they need, how this money is going to be used and why it has to be used and how we're going to collect the receivables. But to get all this done between now and next Thursday, I don't think it can happen, guys, from what I've seen and what's going on.
Here's sort of where I'm leaning, and I understand the need to accept the $6 million, but I would also, and I'll make a motion to that, but I would also include that the board of trustees meeting in a special session on July the 11th, review the current financial situation to include the outstanding receivables and payables.
And payables, exactly right.
Is that next Thursday?
Yeah, that's
the
11th. That's
Thursday.
Thursday. Yes.
If you're putting that into a motion, I'll second it, Mr. Moore.
So the motion would be they would approve it as long as we get this information and meet next Thursday, right?
Yeah, for what it's worth, guys, I mean, I have a Ross Foundation meeting at 11 o'clock at noon and then another meeting at 10. So yeah, I don't think I'll,
Could you do it Friday?
I could.
The 12th?
I could do it. Friday's fine with me.
Friday's fine with me too. What about the other board members? Eddie? Megan?
I could be available Friday.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do Friday.
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock Friday.
10 o'clock Friday?
Great.
Is that fair?
So I'll,
All right.
I'll amend my motion to say instead of, and I shouldn't have said the Thursday, but we'll do it Friday at 10 o'clock.
Okay.
And that gives everybody one more day to retrieve and correlate whatever information they can.
That's correct.
So Johnny, Mr. Chairman, if I understand it,
Yes.
there is nothing that you've got that would be of interest to us with all of the negotiating you've been doing to obtain this advance. Is that correct?
I've got a list of accounts payable. I do not have a list of receivables. And then the payables were like 2 or 3, and there's large amounts. Dr. Jones, can you speak to those payables? I don't have it with me.
I don't have it before me either, but the main payables deal with our largest vendors, primarily Sodexo Item Services. We have others that we need to resolve as well.
And that
How much
is
do
with
we owe Sodexo right now, both on the maintenance end and the food service end?
Sodexo's 882.
882, I believe, on Sodexo, and then SSC does facilities.
332,000.
And 332 is that number.
So we owe them over $1 million. How long has that account been out? Not paid.
It's over 60. Sodexo's over 60 days past due, but not
Close to 3 months.
Yeah.
Hey, folks, as bad as it is to borrow money, this is interest free, and it's worse to owe your vendors, in my opinion, than to draw the $6 million. I mean,
No,
I think we got a motion in a second.
okay.
Let's go back now. What's the motion going to be? We've talked 2 or 3 different things here.
The motion, this is Bruce, the motion is to approve accepting the $6 million interest-free loan from the state, and that the board will meet to be repaid by July 2020, I think. And the board will meet in session in a special call meeting next Friday morning at 10 o'clock.
Anybody, any further discussion on that motion? If not, then he's got the motion. I need a second.
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 All in favor, say yes.
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 Do we have any no's or any abstention? If not, then the
Chairman?
motion, yes.
Who seconded that motion? I'm sorry.
Well, I think
We had two.
Probably give it to Eddie. Makes me no difference. Well, give it to Eddie.
Yeah. Yeah, we had 2, but
Give it to
Eddie.
whoever.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, the motion's been made, it's been seconded. We all voted for it, so the motion passed. And that's set up a board meeting for next Friday at 10 o'clock. That's July the 12th. Any other discussion?
I have one thing, this is Bruce. I want Dr. Jones to clarify one thing we talked about earlier in the week. There was a statement made in one of the articles that dealt with, I think, 9 out of 10 of our students receive financial aid. And I thought that was rather high. And in talking to him, he clarified what that really means. So just so as we have everybody here and on the phone, I think it's important to clarify that, Dr. Jones.
Yes, well, Mr. Moore asked me that question. When we talk about financial aid, we're not just talking about federal financial aid. We're talking about all sources of aid that students would receive. So students may be eligible and qualify for scholarships. They may be eligible and qualify for student loans of various kinds, both government-supported and private loans. Also, they could qualify for Pell Grants. And so when we talk about aid, that's what we mean by aid. It's in the collective sense. I think some people took that to mean only Pell Grants. But when we say federal aid or financial aid, we're talking about the full gambit of aid that's available to students.
Any more discussion? Anybody else add anything? Bruce, anybody?
Nope. Thanks.
Okay, need a motion to adjourn. Do you have a motion? Do you have a second?
Second.
All in favor say yes.
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 Anyone opposed? We are adjourned until next Friday at 10 o'clock.